Your concerns are overblown and costly, Lucas said, staring me down across the conference table. We need people who prioritize efficiency. My name is Jake Delaney, 57 years old, and I've been the plant operations manager at Ironwood Ford for the last 14 years. Before that, I spent 21 years working my way up from the factory floor in Akron, Ohio. I knew every machine, every safety protocol, and every shortcut that could cost a man his fingers, or worse. Lucas Wynn had been CEO for exactly 7 months, brought in by the board to streamline operations and maximize shareholder value. The kind of man who wore Italian shoes to a metal fabrication plant and talked about pain points and growth metrics while stepping over oil puddles that should have been cleaned up weeks ago. The first red flag came when he canceled our quarterly safety training. A full day of production lost, he called it. Then maintenance schedules became flexible, parts replacements were delayed, and warning signs vanished from hazardous areas to reduce visual clutter. I raised concerns in private at first, showed him the statistics, the near-miss reports, the industry standards we were now ignoring. He nodded, smiled, and did nothing. So I documented everything, every violation, every ignored recommendation, every maintenance request denied. That morning, I'd emailed the executive team about a critical hydraulic press that needed urgent maintenance. The pressure gauges were failing, and the safety shield had cracked. Using it was like playing Russian roulette. I recommended shutting it down immediately. 2 hours later, I was called into the conference room with the entire leadership team present. That's when Lucas delivered his verdict. Jake, we appreciate your years of service, but your priorities no longer align with our vision for Ironwood Forge. Around the table, eyes dropped. No one spoke up. These are people I'd worked beside for years, people whose families I knew by name. Now, they stare at their notepads like they held the secrets of the universe. You'll receive 2 months severance, Lucas continued. Human resources will handle the exit process. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice, just nodded once and stood up. As I walked to the door, Vanessa from finance caught my eye. Just for a second, there was something there, fear mixed with respect. She knew what was happening was wrong. They all did. But I also knew something Lucas didn't. My documentation hadn't just been sent in company emails that could be erased. I had copies, detailed, comprehensive, and ready to go to people who would actually care. I started at Ironwood Forge back when it was still called Midwestern Metal Works. Began on 3rd shift running a stamping machine, 6 months after my 19th birthday. Hot, dangerous work. But it paid better than anything else in Akron for a kid with just a high school diploma. My father had worked 42 years at Goodyear before he retired. Make yourself necessary, he told me on my first day. Learn everything. Be the guy they can't replace. So I did. Learned every machine, took night classes in industrial engineering, and volunteered for the safety committee because nobody else wanted to. By my 15th year, I was floor supervisor. By my 21st, operations manager for the entire plant. 350 people reported up to me. I knew their strengths and their weaknesses. I knew which ones needed a firm hand and which ones worked better with encouragement. My wife Elaine used to tease me. You care more about those machines than our own kitchen appliances. Maybe she was right. Our dishwasher had been making a grinding noise for 6 months. But at work, I knew a grinding noise could mean someone losing a hand before the end of their shift. When Old Man Winters ran the company, safety was the top priority. Production targets don't matter if someone doesn't go home to their family, he used to say. The monthly safety record was posted at the entrance, and bonuses were tied to keeping accident rates low. After he retired, Ironwood passed through 3 different ownership groups in 10 years. Each one a little less connected to the work we actually did. Each one a little more focused on quarterly numbers. Lucas was just the latest and the worst in that downward spiral. The first time we met, he asked how quickly we could double production. I told him we need to hire more people and maybe add another shift. He frowned, like I'd just insulted his intelligence. What about just running the machines harder? He asked. That's when the warning bells went off in my head. But I tried, God knows I tried, to make him understand how things worked on the floor. For months, I watched small changes add up. Maintenance intervals stretched. Safety equipment became optional. Experienced workers who spoke up were the first to be let go. I still remembered Tommy Wilson, 26 years with the company, finding me in the parking lot the day after they let him go. "You're the only one left who remembers how it's supposed to be, Jake," he said. "Don't let them turn that place into a death trap." I promised him I wouldn't. And now I was walking to my office to clean out my desk, that promise still echoing in my ears. Human Resources gave me 30 minutes to pack my things. Cheryl from HR stood awkwardly by the door while I emptied drawers. We'd worked together for 12 years. Now she couldn't even look me in the eye. "I need your keys and badge," she finally said. "And you'll need to sign these." She slid the termination papers across my desk. I signed them without reading. What was the point? My career at Ironwood was over either way. As I packed the last of my personal items, a coffee mug my daughter made in high school ceramics class, a few family photos, Terry Baker from maintenance appeared in the doorway. Cheryl stepped outside to give us a minute. "This is wrong, Jake," Terry whispered. "Everyone knows it." I just nodded, my voice low. "How's that hydraulic press?" "They've got Jason running it now," he said. "Kid's been here 8 months, Jake. 8 months. Terry shook his head. "Lucas told us to hit the production numbers no matter what." My stomach clenched. Jason was a good kid, eager to impress. Maybe too eager. "Be careful, Terry," I said, handing him the box with my stuff. "Watch your back." In the parking lot, I sat in my truck for a long time, staring at the building where I'd spent most of my adult life. The full weight of what had happened was starting to sink in. My job was gone. My role as the guy who fought for safety gone. But that wasn't what weighed on me the most. People were going to get hurt, maybe even die. And Lucas would brush it off as a cost of doing business. I started the truck, but didn't go home. Instead, I drove to the public library, logged onto a computer, and spent 3 straight hours organizing my documentation. Every email, every inspection report, every maintenance request that had been denied. Photos I'd taken of blocked fire exits, broken machine guards, leaking chemical drums. Then I wrote a detailed cover letter outlining the systematic dismantling of safety protocols under Lucas Wynn. When I finished, I took the whole packet to FedEx and sent it to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration office in Columbus. On the way home, I felt a strange calm wash over me. For months, I'd been trapped inside a losing battle, playing by the rules, respecting the chain of command, trying to protect my people from inside a system that was rigged. But now I was outside it, free. When I pulled into the driveway, my phone buzzed. A message from Vanessa in finance. "Lucas is running that hydraulic press around the clock. 3 shifts. No maintenance vraks. What should we do?" I didn't answer right away. I walked inside, kissed Elaine hello, and poured myself a rare glass of bourbon. "You're home early," she said, watching my face. "I got fired," I replied. Her eyes widened. What? "What?" "For doing my job," I said, and took a slow sip. "But I'm not finished yet." I picked up my phone and texted Vanessa back, "Document everything." I got a plan. 3 days later, I got a call from Patricia Simmons at OSHA. "Mr. Delaney," she said, "we've reviewed your submission regarding Ironwood Forge. I'd like to discuss some of these allegations in person." We met at a coffee shop 20 minutes outside Akron. Patricia was younger than I expected, maybe mid-30s, but her questions were sharp and well-informed. She had clearly done her homework. "We take these reports seriously," she said after 2 hours of detailed discussion, "especially when they come from someone with your background." But then came the catch. "You should know Ironwood has a spotless official record." "Of course they do," I said. "Lucas has been covering his tracks. He's been falsifying internal reports, paying off minor injuries in cash, and threatening people's jobs if they speak up." Patricia nodded, jotting down notes. "We'll need to do an inspection," she said. "It may take a few weeks to get approval and schedule the visit." "People might not have a few weeks," I told her, picturing that hydraulic press running nonstop. "I understand your concern," she said, "but we have procedures. Procedures won't help Jason Parker if that press fails." I cut in, "Or anyone else on that floor." She gave me a sympathetic look. "I'll move things as quickly as I can. In the meantime, is there anyone still at Ironwood who might be willing to talk to us?" I thought for a moment. Maybe, but if they did, they'd be putting their livelihoods on the line. After Patricia left, I sat there, feeling the slow weight of time. Bureaucracy crawled. Accidents didn't wait. That evening I called Terry Baker. "How's it looking in there?" I asked as soon as he picked up. "Bad, Jake. Really bad." His voice was low, like he was afraid someone might overhear. "That press is making sounds I've never heard before. Lucas has 3 temps running it. Kids who barely know which button turns it on. I tried showing them the right steps." He pulled me aside and said if I didn't get with the program, I'd be next. "OSHA's coming," I said, "but it might take time." The silence on the other end said everything. "Someone's going to get hurt before they show up," Terry finally said. "I know," I answered. "I'm trying to speed things up." The next morning, I drove down to the offices of the Akron Gazette and asked to speak with their investigative reporter. After a short wait, I was introduced to Olivia Jimenez, a sharp-eyed woman with a voice recorder in hand and a raised eyebrow. "So you're claiming Ironwood Forge is unsafe?" she asked. "I'm not claiming anything," I said. "I've got documentation." I showed her some of the photos I'd kept. Emergency stops taped over, exits blocked by inventory, machine guards missing entirely. "This could be any factory," she said. "How do I know this is Ironwood?" "Because I worked there for 35 years, until they fire me for trying to stop this exact thing." Her eyes narrowed. "So this is about revenge?" "This is about preventing funerals," I replied. "Run the story or don't. But if someone dies while you wait, how will you live with that?" Olivia studied me for a long moment. "I need more than your word. Do you have anyone currently inside who will back this up?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was Vanessa. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling, "there's been an accident. The hydraulic press. Jason's hurt. It's bad. Ambulance just left." My stomach twisted. "How bad?" I asked. "They're saying he might lose his arm." I looked at Olivia. "You just got your verification." 2 hours later, Lucas Wynn stood outside Ironwood Forge, holding a press conference. His posture was perfect, his suit immaculate, his voice smooth and polished. "We're deeply concerned about the unfortunate incident involving Mr. Parker," he said. "Safety is our #1 priority." He went on to call it an isolated incident. Operator error. He promised a full internal investigation. Then he went a step further. "Unfortunately," he said, "we believe this accident may be linked to deliberate sabotage by a recently terminated employee who had expressed ongoing dissatisfaction with company policies." He never said my name. He didn't have to. That evening, 2 police officers knocked on my door with questions about where I'd been that morning. And my phone was ringing with calls from former colleagues, asking if I'd really done what Lucas was implying. The next morning, I hired an attorney. Harold Greenberg had spent over 40 years representing union workers. He'd seen every stunt companies pulled to dodge accountability. "They're trying to make you the scapegoat," Harold said bluntly. "It's actually smart strategy. Blame the disgruntled ex-employee, drag your name through the mud, stall everything in investigations until the heat fades." "But I wasn't even there," I said. "They've got security cameras." Harold nodded. "Which they control." "Jake, this isn't about truth. It's about liability. If they pin it on you, their insurance doesn't spike, the regulators stay off their backs, and Jason's lawsuit goes after you, not Ironwood." "So what do we do?" I asked. "We fight with facts," he replied. "You said you documented everything?" "Everything," I confirmed. "Going back months." "Good," Harold said, "but we'll need more. We need to know what they're saying internally about the accident." That evening, Terry Baker and Vanessa Morris came to Harold's office. Both looked uneasy, constantly checking their phones. "Lucas held an all-hands meeting after you left," Terry said. "Told everyone if they talked to you or the press, they'd be fired. Made them sign fresh NDAs." "But you're here," I said. Terry's weathered face tightened. "I've been there 30 years, Jake. What happened to Jason? That's not what we stand for, or used to anyway." Vanessa nodded. "I handle the maintenance request logs for accounting. I kept copies of everything Lucas denied in the last 6 months, including 3 separate work orders on that hydraulic press." She handed over a USB. "He's been cutting corners everywhere. Safety, quality checks, environmental compliance, even payroll taxes. Anything to make those quarterly numbers look better." Harold read through the files while we talked. When he looked up, his face was grim. "This isn't just negligence," he said. "This is willful endangerment. But it still doesn't prove Jake wasn't involved in the accident." "Maybe this will help," Terry said, pulling out his phone. "I recorded the so-called training Lucas gave those temps before they started on the press." The clip was short. Lucas pointed out the power button and the emergency stop, then rattled off the production targets. "That's maybe 2% of the required training," I said. "Did Jason even get this much?" "Less," Terry said. Lucas told him to figure it out and walked away. Harold shook his head, furious. "This is completely illegal. Those workers should have had OSHA-mandated training, supervision, the whole deal." "That's not all," Vanessa added quietly. "I found something in the company email server." Lucas knew that press was dangerous. The manufacturer's rep inspected it last month and officially recommended shutting it down until repairs were made. She showed us her phone. Lucas's response: "Too expensive. Find workarounds." The room went silent. This wasn't just ignorance or pressure. Lucas had knowingly put workers in harm's way after being explicitly warned. "He buried the inspection report," Vanessa said. "Never sent it to maintenance." I thought of Jason, 23 years old, lying in a hospital bed, possibly facing life without his arm. Also, Lucas could hit a number on a spreadsheet. "So what's our next step?" I asked Harold. He looked at the evidence in front of him. "First, we clear your name. Then, we make sure Ironwood and Lucas personally answer for this." Just then, Terry's phone buzzed. He looked down, and his face went pale. "What is it?" I asked. "OSHA just showed up at the plant," he said. "Surprise inspection." Lucas is losing his mind. For the first time since I've been fired, I smiled. Perfect timing. The OSHA inspection at Ironwood Forge lasted 3 full days. Patricia Simmons led a team of 6 inspectors who documented over 78 serious violations. Meanwhile, Harold had set up a meeting with the detectives handling the sabotage accusations against me. With Terry's statement and security footage showing I hadn't been anywhere near the premises, the police quickly determined that Lucas's claims were baseless. I was formally cleared, and Harold wasted no time leaking the news to the Akron Gazette. Olivia Jimenez's front-page story hit stands that Sunday. Whistleblower vindicated. Former manager warned of danger before tragic accident. It laid out everything: my warnings, Lucas's cover-ups, and Jason's condition. Jason had survived, but his arm was gone below the elbow. The article set off outrage across Akron, especially among families tied to Ironwood. For decades, it had been a pillar of the town. Now, it was being rightfully seen as a death trap, managed by a CEO who valued quarterly profits over human lives. Lucas tried to salvage the situation with another press conference, but this time the reporters came armed with facts. They grilled him on the manufacturer's warnings, the fake safety logs, the ignored maintenance reports. "These allegations are entirely unfounded," Lucas said, his polished tone cracking. "Jake Delaney has a personal vendetta against the company." What Lucas didn't realize was that Harold had arranged for Jason to watch that press conference from his hospital room. And Jason? He'd agreed to speak out. Watching Lucas brush off the injury that changed his life was the last straw. He gave an exclusive interview that aired the same night, his bandaged arm in full view. On camera, Jason shared what had really happened, how he was thrown on that press with no proper training, told to meet unrealistic quotas, and left to operate equipment that had been flagged as unsafe. "Jake Delaney tried to shut that machine down," he said. "If they'd listened, I'd still have my arm." The interview hit like a freight train. That evening, Ironwood's board called an emergency meeting. The next morning, 2 things happened. Lucas was put on administrative leave pending an internal investigation, and I got a phone call from Gregory Winters. "Jake, it's Greg Winters," he said. "I need your help." I hadn't heard from Greg in years. After his father stepped down, Greg had moved to Chicago and sold off his stake in the company. Now he was back. "The board asked me to step in, just temporarily," he explained. "It's a mess, Jake. OSHA shut down half our production lines. Lawsuits are piling up. Morale's in the basement." "Sounds like you've got your hands full," I said, not sure where this was going. I need someone who knows this operation like the back of their hand, he said. Someone the team still trusts. I want you to come back, Jake, as acting plant manager. I didn't expect that. You know I'm the one who sent the evidence to OSHA, right? That's exactly why we want you, he said. You put safety first. That's what my father always believed in. I thought about it. Going back wouldn't be easy. Some folks would blame me for the shutdown, the lost hours, maybe even lost bonuses. But it was also a chance to fix what had been broken. I'll do it, I said, but on two conditions. First, every safety violation gets addressed before we start production. No shortcuts. Agreed, Greg said without hesitation. And second, Jason Parker gets full compensation. Best medical care, his full salary while he recovers, and a job waiting for him if he wants to return. There was a pause. Done. When can you start? 3 days later, I walked back through Ironwood Forge's front doors. The production floor was quiet, machines idle during the safety overhaul. Terry Baker met me with a clipboard full of repair notes and a tired but genuine smile. Never thought I'd see you back here, he said as we walked the floor. Makes two of us, I replied. We stopped in front of the same hydraulic press that had mangled Jason's arm. Yellow caution tape surrounded it, waiting for the manufacturer's reps to either repair or scrap the whole thing. It's going to take time, Terry said, eyes scanning the quiet plant. Time to fix all the damage Lucas left behind. I nodded, taking in the still machines and the crews reinstalling safety guards and hazard signage. Then we better get started. 6 weeks later, Gregory Winters called a company-wide meeting in the main production area. All 300 employees gathered around a temporary stage, the air thick with equal parts tension and hope. I stood off to the side as Greg stepped up to the mic. Behind him sat the newly expanded board of directors, now including 2 retired floor workers and a safety compliance officer. Many of you have been at Ironwood longer than I have, Greg began. You remember when this company stood for more than just quarterly profits. Starting today, we restore that legacy. He laid out a full restructuring plan, new safety protocols, expanded maintenance budgets, bonuses tied to both output and safety, and a worker representation committee with real decision-making power. Then Greg paused, his expression tightening. As for the leadership, that failed you. This morning, the board unanimously voted to terminate Lucas Wynn for cause. Furthermore, based on overwhelming evidence of willful negligence, we are fully cooperating with the district attorney's office on potential criminal charges. A ripple of murmurs passed through the crowd. One more announcement, Greg said. Ironwood Forge will now have a new position, Director of Operational Safety and Compliance. This role will have the final say on any issue impacting worker safety and will report directly to the board. Then he turned toward me. Jake Delaney has accepted this position, effective immediately. The silence broke into applause. Not polite, corporate applause, but the kind that comes from people who've seen the worst and are grateful someone fought back. As I stepped forward, I spotted Jason Parker at the back. His left sleeve was pinned up, but his face held a smile. He gave me a small nod, one that carried both forgiveness and something else, respect. I nodded back and turned to face my colleagues. 3 months after returning to Ironwood, I found myself walking into the county courthouse for Lucas Wynn's arraignment. He was facing multiple charges, including criminal negligence that resulted in serious injury. I didn't need to be there, but I felt compelled to see it through. Lucas looked smaller than I remembered in his sleek, overpriced suit, standing stiffly before the judge. When he turned and saw me in the gallery, his face flushed with anger. I just watched silently as he pleaded not guilty and was granted bail. Outside, in the parking lot, he stormed up to me. Happy now, Jake, he snapped. You've ruined my career over one damn accident. It wasn't just one accident, I replied, voice calm. It was a disaster waiting to happen. You knew the risks. You chose profit. That's business, he muttered, brushing it off. No, I said, that's criminal. I turned and walked away. I'll beat these charges, he shouted behind me, and then I'll sue you for everything you've got. I didn't answer. Some men never learn. That weekend, I went to visit Jason at his apartment. He was adjusting to life with a prosthetic arm, determined to get back on his feet and eventually return to work. We sat on his balcony drinking iced tea in the late afternoon sun. "I've been meaning to ask," Jason said. "You could have walked away. Found another job. Why'd you keep fighting?" I thought for a moment. "Because some things matter more than a paycheck," I said. "When you see something truly wrong, you either look the other way or you do something." Jason nodded slowly. "I'm glad you did." Driving home that evening, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Ironwood was running safe again. The production numbers were better too. Turns out, people work harder when they're not afraid. And I was doing something that actually mattered. Sometimes, standing your ground means walking away first. But that doesn't mean you're done.